Hello, good morning, good afternoon. Hope you guys are doing good. Of course, we are here. We're back. I have with me, creative director Mario, as well as our hardware editor Dan from XDA. You guys may be aware of them. We've seen some of their stuff on the XDA portal. Thank you guys for joining me tonight. So the reason why we're doing this recap, obviously, not that long, about a week or so ago, CES occurred. It's a massive event that starts at the beginning of every year, and the XDA crew was definitely on the ground. We had our chief executive editor on the portal, Michal, as well as our creative director, Mario, and myself. We tackled the event. We had different things to cover. And today we're going to talk to you guys about some of the things that we enjoyed during the event and some of the things that, we felt like needed a little bit more discussion than what we had on the show floor. I'm going to start it off real quick with talking about the first event that happened, and that actually happened 2 days before the actual CES event even started, and that was on Sunday. And that was the Honor event. Honor did have a show and basically hosted a lot of people from different media sources to showcase the Honor 7X release in the US market. We were aware of that, of course, that was coming in, as we also had the announcement of the Honor View 10 that's also going to be coming to the US. There was also I think a red special edition Honor 7X that was going to be announced, or released around Valentine's Day in limited numbers. The show was a really nice show. I did a live stream for you guys. You guys can check that out at the XDA Facebook page. We did a before and after show, and as well, we also did an interview with the CEO of Honor, asking some of the community questions that were submitted to us, and provided you guys with a video response to that. So I think that was a great event. Glad to be able to get my hands on the View 10. I think it's a really great device. From the just small, quick specifications, this is basically a Kirin 970, the high-end chipset that Huawei is currently offering on their devices, on an Honor device in a really budget-friendly price frame, and as well as the NPU, which is the neural processing unit that enables the device to have better picture taking for automatic. It recognizes the scene, the subject, and it takes great pictures. And of course, the Honor 7X, the successor to the 6X and the 5X that were released previous years at CES. Great budget devices, under $200, and a lot of great features. I'll give you guys some more information, of course, in the description below to those events that we did. We did an unboxing and some videos there. But of course, Honor had an event, and then we had another event that went through, and that was Huawei. And Mario, I think you and Michal had a much better presence there than I did at that point.
Yeah, so with the Huawei event, it was kind of funny. It's just moments before the event, well, not moments before, but day before the event, we found out through a report that AT&T had decided to drop their deal to sell Huawei devices in the US at carrier stores. Obviously, this is a huge blow for Huawei's expansion to the US. And they had to make some last-minute changes in their presentation, or so that's what it appeared. Their presentation was solely focused on the Mate 10 Pro and what they're bringing to the US through Amazon and online retailers. It was basically the same event that we saw back when they announced the Mate 10 Pro. Nothing really new was announced in that regard in terms of what the device is, what it does, what the future of the device is going to be. They just made some more marketing for their new processor platform and the NPU, which they also proudly advertised with the Honor View 10 and all of its feature sets. I guess the standout portion of the show was when they actually acknowledged that this had happened. It was near the end. It was off script, and it was brought up that ultimately they feel that the biggest loss is not for Huawei and not for carriers, but for US customers. I tend to agree. These are really, really great devices. They're not as good in terms of value as Honor. And Honor is already becoming really popular in the West. So it is kind of disappointing. At the same time, there are some suspicions there. We're going to have to wait for those things to be cleared up. I'm not even partial to that, to be honest. It was a really, really weird day in that sense, because everyone there was a journalist. Everyone had just read the news. Everyone was probably covering what was going on in the developments, and everyone was excited, or everyone was expecting something to happen there. Are they going to address it? Are they not going to address it at all? What's going to happen? So, it's kind of like they had the rug pull from under the feet. They were not ready for that. They had invested a lot of money in marketing and advertising for this expansion to the US and their campaign. It's going to definitely be a setback for them. Luckily, they got Honor. Like you said, the Honor View 10 is a pretty compelling device. I'm still a little bit skeptical about their AI applications, not because the NPU is bad. The NPU is fantastic. It's really just a big vector math engine, and there's nothing really mystical beyond that in my eyes. Yes, you can detect the picture. They can see that you're pointing at a puppy, and they can make some adjustments. It is not the best enhancement user experience to me. I can see why people would find it interesting, same way that people find many other camera features interesting. And that said, it is a really compelling device. It's got good screen, great processor, big battery. It's beautiful design, premium materials, and so on. So at least they have that. Obviously, they want to come in with their main brand being the brand, the actual brand, and this is going to be a setback for them.
And I think the other thing I'd love to see it a little bit more. I mean, at this point, even with Honor, what we notice is that the NPU is really being focused, as you said, purely on taking pictures, making it as an easy auto mode for most users to be able to use it to take pictures very simply. And I'd like to be able to see some more implementation or some more applications, at least, where the NPU is becoming really functional. Like they demoed this one scene with a quad where they were controlling and using a voice control. So that would be things that we would like to see the NPU start being generating something that truly uses the AI as opposed to just scene recognition at this point. But again, with both the Honor, the View 10, as well as the Mate 10, I had an opportunity to play with the Mate 10, by the way. It's a great device. Both devices are very nice. So I'm looking forward to it. Sad that it's not on a carrier, but hopefully maybe down the road they'll be able to figure it out and they'll work something.
Well, and it's so weird that this is happening, given that for such a long time, Huawei's been behind the scenes on a lot of network towers. They do a lot of work, or they use a lot of their antennas, even here in the U.S. But for some reason, when it comes to I remember years ago, network router switches, and now their cell phones, they're worried about this Chinese influence. If they were that worried, why did you allow people to use their tower equipment in the first place? But it is what it is. We'll see what happens. It is unfortunate.
And the devices are still being sold. They're still being activated in the US. There's a ton of other companies that are still actually, supplying these devices to the American public. And as some people have brought up, there is no real public evidence pointing towards something that would kind of merit or warrant these kind of this kind of action, this kind of response from AT&T. It is kind of a loss for consumers as far as we know. Again, there might be something there. We don't know. There was that report from the House Intelligence Committee. Oh, really? It's but just looking at it from the surface and from what we can absolutely ascertain, which is it's a great phone, and we cannot absolutely say, well, there is some security risk there, or privacy risk, or some kind of problem with Huawei's relationship with China. From what we can ascertain, it's a very good device. It's not coming to the US. It's not coming in a way that would enable Huawei to rapidly expand. They acknowledge that most device sales in the US occur in carrier stores, and carrier stores usually have that big influence. This could have been a way for them to begin coming in. And one last interesting bit of info: we know for sure that the AT&T build for the AT&T Huawei device was being worked on up until just a couple days before this whole thing happened.
I think I saw that there was a leak on the ROM even a few weeks before.
And we can confirm that there's a compiled build just a couple days before, and it's interesting. I'm sure there's a lot of AT&T branded Mate 10s out there, and I don't know what they're going to do with that. Obviously, they're going to repurpose them, sell them, but it's a weird thing. I don't think this has actually happened in mobile before to this extent on such a short notice and such a
Samsung.
drastic. Well, yes, but that was kind of different. I mean,
but even
you can't even call this a recall because nothing was sold. You know?
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
They have a warehouse full of phones that are set.
Yeah. If anything, it's much more convenient.
The main thing, though, I think the other thing we want to make sure is that obviously they're using Amazon, they're leveraging Amazon's e-commerce at this point. The Mate 10 will be available for the U.S. market. It may not be branded as AT&T, but you should be able to pick it up if you want to pick up a Mate 10. I think it runs about $800 on Amazon. And you could pick it up, or you could pick up also the Porsche design that they were also announcing. So
at one point, ZTE had problems too, and we see them on carrier. So things will happen.
Yeah, I'm hoping it's just a matter of time, and that wasn't their time at that point. Okay, so we'll give you some more information about the Honor stuff as well as the Huawei stuff, some of the other things. We did also have an opportunity to stop by Gigabyte's booth. I had an opportunity to actually go in there and talk to them and get to see some of their new hardware, their ORIS line of devices that they're coming up. And for the real quick kind of storyline here is Gigabyte isn't going away. Gigabyte is going to be taking care of the mid-range to entry-level hardware as far as CPUs, GPUs, motherboards, accessories, and so on. And ORIS is going to be basically their top line, basically like their premier side. And they have ORIS devices from everything from laptops, cases, GPUs, accessories, and they've already provided a lot of this hardware to a lot of manufacturers, and you can actually pick up ORIS hardware now. And one of the things that I was really excited about it is that they showed us the ORIS motherboard. It's going to be working with the new Ryzen Plus that, as you may be aware of, was also announced around CES. They're on the Ryzen roadmap. But the next generation of Ryzen chipset obviously is going to have new hardware from ORIS. So I was excited. I put out a video for you guys here on the channel. I'll give you guys a link, of course, in the description to check it out. Dan, of course, had a lot of stuff that he shared with me, and he planned a lot of stuff for us to be able to cover with Gigabyte, and he set up a lot of our meetings. So hopefully, did I cover everything, Dan? Did I miss something from the event?
You know what? We got what we needed to meet with, and I really appreciate you and Mario going out and meeting with these people.
Yeah, no.
It's been impressive how much our readers, our viewers have been supporting us as we do this expansion of coverage, and it shows. When we went and talked, as far as I understand from you, when we went and talked to AMD, when we talked to Intel, Gigabyte, I've had nothing but positive feedback from them, saying they were happy to meet with us, and they look forward to working with us very quickly in 2018. I think people might be surprised how quickly things come around.
Yeah.
No, definitely, and not to do a shameless plug or anything, but Dan and I are working together on finishing up and build a system that we're finishing up. I finally finished putting the entire thing today. Sent them some pictures, and I'll install Ubuntu on it.
And those are some nice pictures.
When I got that set up, everything was it's beautiful. We missed one piece, and we waited a couple of days to get that running. But once we got the setup and put in the cooler, and Rosewell makes amazing cases. The RGB lights are pre-installed. It's set. It's red. It's screaming.
There you go.
That's going to be coming in the next few weeks. So that was pretty much how we covered that as far as with Gigabyte. And let's talk about the next thing. The next thing on the topic list is a little bit of an interesting concept. Now, Mario, you had some coverage on this beforehand. I'm assuming the event to the summit, and you had a little bit more experience with some of this. But as far as Intel and Qualcomm connected devices, how did that go with you?
So for the unaware, Qualcomm is bringing their chipsets to Windows, or rather, Windows is bringing ARM support to the world. Well, specifically right now to Qualcomm. So what we're going to see is Windows devices actually running on Snapdragon processors, or the Snapdragon platform, as I like to call it now. Mm-hmm. This is actually pretty interesting. So we've been able to demo some Windows devices running on the Snapdragon 835. Some people might ask, well, why does that make a difference? I already have a laptop. It's got most people probably have an i5 or an i7 dual core, or now quad core with the latest laptop CPU gen, unless you have something more beefy. But in any case, You know, why would you care? Well, this is really designed for the hybrid form factor, and specifically because the Snapdragon platform has an integrated modem chip. It's designed for always on, always connected devices. What does that mean? This is what they want is for hybrid devices especially, but all devices ultimately, to always be connected to the internet via 4G LTE and via 5G in the future as well. This is what they're trying to do. This is what Intel wants to do as well in order to supply modems for their chips so that they can keep up and compete. Because there is some demand. Well, there's quite a bit of demand for this kind of stuff. And what I'm interested about, Windows on ARM and Snapdragon laptops in particular is the fact that they're going to have great battery life, allegedly, reportedly. But I do trust that they're going to have very good battery life. There's also that connectivity factor. There's the fact that the platform is pretty damn small, and the thermal envelope is also very nice. So that's going to allow companies to work out their interiors in such a way to minimize weight, maximize thinness, increase portability, innovating hybrid form factor designs. And also, finally, the fact that we can finally see what the Snapdragon platform can actually perform like without being tied to Android by, a chain and a metal ball. And Android is definitely weighting down the performance of those processors when it comes to real world UI operations. And having demoed Snapdragon 835 devices running Windows, I was quite shocked at, the responsiveness and general performance of that device. Now, if you remember when Surface tried to experiment with non-x86 processors, it was a disaster. But this is actual Windows 10 compiled for ARM, and it runs beautiful. And
so this is an RT then. We're not looking at Windows RT. We're looking at a full.
No. Windows RT was an abomination.
Yeah, no, I know, but I'm just so that people are aware. We're not really talking about a shrunk or a dummied down version of Windows that only certain things from the Play Store can install, or not Play Store, from the Microsoft Store will install. We're talking full version of Windows that you can install Office applications and use Windows on these always connected devices. But yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So it is. And we've seen this kind of stuff before in some other ways. I mean, we've certainly seen Android running on x86. I remember the Zenfone 2 was a really interesting device. And that also surprised me, the fact that Android was running so well on that that non-ARM chip is pretty awesome, right?
Yeah. I think Remix OS used to also run on Android on x86. Some of the older
for sure. I had installed Remix OS on my Surface Pro 3. Yeah. And I had the highest Antutu score ever. For free had an i7. So that would be interesting. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting that we're seeing this kind of interplay, and we're seeing how different platforms, different software platforms perform different hardware platforms. I think it's really interesting, and it'll kind of enable us to see Snapdragon processors, under a new light. And if in the future, and I have it on good authority that this might be a thing, if we see Chromebooks on Snapdragon devices, because so far, yes, there's Chromebooks that run on ARM. That's really all it runs on. But it's, all these crappy processors. So, sorry, other competitors. But, that'll be interesting too, because then we'll be able to compare the Snapdragon processor across Windows, Chrome OS, and Android. And we can really kind of determine, okay, maybe we have to kind of rejudge how we interpret Android is making use of our hardware, because we see 30 to 40% year-on-year boosts, but we don't actually see that translated in terms of real-world UI performance. Same goes for storage. Same goes for the general specifications. So,
I really think though, when Windows 10 for ARM is going to be a game changer. Granted, we're still trying to get a hold of a review sample ourselves to test that, but everything on paper says that the fact that it can run any 32 or any Windows application, not just Office. It's not going to be that RT subset. Should mean that anything's possible. And as TK and I have been testing out this week, NVIDIA just came out with GeForce Now for PC. And what that is cloud-based gaming that as long as you have a good connection, you can play AAA games on anything. I even tested it recently on an Atom device, and it was running 1440p at max settings without hiccuping. So if Win 10 ARM can really handle every application the way it is, I think we're going to see that the lines blur between what we consider mobile and what we consider like portable computing or PCs.
Yeah, and don't forget that there's also a big push, like we said, for always connected devices. And now this is both from Intel and Qualcomm. But if the chip is enough to handle that, and if it also comes with an integrated 5G modem, and in 2019 we have amazing 5G connections running, and maybe our data plans will also improve a little bit, and we'll be able to,
I was gonna say,
but
we'll have to make sure we have unlimited data plans at that point, because you can
right. But it'll be amazing, because then even just games, and it could also change, quite frankly, the game industry, because then there would be a further kind of agnosticization of hardware, in the sense that you wouldn't need to go out of your way to get the hardware locally in order to play a high-end game. Now, we've kept hearing promises of this for so many years. What was that one failed service that had come up at E3 so like a decade ago on live or something like that? There's been
sounds familiar.
There's been all kinds of flops like this, but NVIDIA has the real deal with this. And I mean, it makes sense that it will be NVIDIA who will be bringing the real deal. And then, like, this is one of those things that it is something that on its face doesn't seem like a big deal, but it will enable so many more use cases that right now are kind of impractical. Yeah, you could use like your hotspot, I guess, but even then, that doesn't synergize well with the fact that every carrier has a freaking hotspot limit. I found that I went face first into that with CES, use up all my hotspot data. But also the fact that we don't have 5G yet, and these are devices are going to be 5G ready. So you buy them now, and there's a slower upgrade cycle for these kind of bigger devices. Well, that's great, because when that happens, you are going to be able to do that. And if it's got a really nice screen, and you have a GeForce Now subscription, you are going to be able to play, like you said, a nice game, 1440p, and possibly on the go. What else would you want?
Well, and what I'm also thinking is, Samsung released the DeX with the S8 this year.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And the whole idea was that it was supposed to be a phone that could dock and become an office platform.
Yeah.
What's to say that Samsung doesn't offer Win 10 ARM as a boot to Win 10 ARM when you dock into DeX? Now you have a full Windows environment with Office and everything there.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. You're talking kind of like
like an expansion of Continuum, which Microsoft try to push.
Microsoft did that kind of failed, but I think also Ubuntu used to have that as well. I think it was I forgot about it. I saw it at MWC a couple of years ago, and the ecosystem was exactly the same. It was a mobile OS that ran on your device, and when you docked it, it turns into the full, the desktop Ubuntu. And I think this is perfect. Yeah, if you're able to boot into Windows when you dock it, as opposed to into that, mishmash of a system that you get right now, which essentially is just Android.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and then you have Razer that came out with that Project Linda, which was essentially a laptop dock for the Razer phone.
Exactly.
So again, there's tons of potential ideas out there if Win 10 ARM really pulls it off. So
yeah, for sure. I think it's really interesting. Like you said, this further erodes the necessity for strong local hardware, because at least like the gaming environment will increasingly be federated to the cloud, and that's interesting. It doesn't mean that actual hardcore PC gaming is going to dissolve, I know that people are going to want to maximize their latency or whatever, and this is going to be, some markets are going to be locked out of this because they don't have the infrastructure or investments to kind of provide a baseline level of connectivity that would allow this to be a pleasant experience. But there are some, I think that we're seeing kind of the initial stages of a big paradigm shift in computing in general. We've been hearing about computing becoming more homogeneous and having kind of this one-size-fits-all device or better interconnectivity across our devices. But now we're finally seeing these developments are going to really, really bring these platforms together and ultimately result in a better deal for consumers. I mean, I think that hybrid devices are tying into this. Like I said, I am a big fan of hybrid devices. I'm a big fan of the Surface line in particular. And I can't wait to see a Surface device running on a Snapdragon processor. I think that's going to be absolutely amazing for students. I personally like a little bit more power. I love my Surface Book, which I'm using right now, but it's still going to be a game changer, I think.
Definitely. And so hopefully we'll be able to give you guys some more coverage on that in the near future. As Daniel mentioned, we're trying to see if we can get our hands on something. So moving on a little bit, I know we're taking a lot of your time, but we're going to come over to the last couple of things. We did get an opportunity to talk to AMD as well about their roadmap. And Daniel and I had some information. Sorry. And I shared with Daniel some of the things that we learned. We got a chance to talk to the AMD, to the Ryzen group, as far as the chipset for the desktops, as well as their mobile, and of course with their Vega line of devices. And it is absolutely amazing. Daniel, I'm sure you have a lot to cover as well. Some of the things they discussed as far as the roadmap, the integration of AMD graphics on Intel motherboard, the built-in graphics support. No longer are you going to be getting low-end graphics. And their new mobile. What did you think about some of the stuff that you heard?
You're still getting them, but you're getting more as well.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I got excited about that though. Yeah. All right, go ahead, Dan.
What I see with that is it's going to help address a couple issues out there right now. One, Intel doesn't really have something to offer. They tried the Iris lineup, which was supposed to be a higher end graphics for its embedded and mobile segments, and it just wasn't doing with what they wanted it to do.
Yeah,
we know they're working on this. The hiring of Raja from AMD is probably going to be a big shift, and we'll see that in the coming years. But right now, that deal with to get Vega embedded on their mobile chipsets, I think is going to be huge, especially after testing Vega. I have Vega 56 behind me, or behind the camera on the test bench, and
wait, you have a Vega 56? You didn't?
Yes, I do.
When did that happen? You didn't send me. Okay, dude, I thought we're working together. Come on. Okay. So you got the Vega 56. That's fine. I got the XFX over here. That's fine.
Yes, you did.
I get the 580. Anyways, yeah, go ahead.
But Vega performs, and I know a lot of people have knocked it. I think it's going to work well in the embedded applications that both in AMD's Ryzen CPUs and the one with Intel. I'm trying to find out how exactly they relate to each other. For example, are the compute units exactly the same? I'm trying to get some, and hopefully we can shed some light on that. But yeah, it looks like it'll be yet another option for consumers as far as better graphics. AMD finally getting into the ultralight with their Ryzen with Vega graphics should help offer some competition.
Yep.
And I'm really genuinely excited to try some of this out, especially that Intel with Vega. They have Intel makes their own mini PCs, and they're called the Next Unit of Computing, or NUCs. And I have the previous high-end one, which is called the Skull Canyon NUC. It was great when you had a GPU hooked up to it for virtual reality, but if you wanted to build Android, it suffered some bottlenecks on the top end, mainly because of heat. I'm very interested to see. They said supposedly with this new Hades Canyon, they've reworked some of those thermals. The graphics will it supposedly means that you won't need a GPU to be able to do VR, although I do hear it will support external graphics in addition to what's on board.
Yeah.
And so we'll see. We got a lot of good things coming for you in 2018. Again, when you see these articles, thank TK, thank Mario for meeting with the people at CES to make these happen. In fact, TK, while we've been talking, I have another email for you. So
Nice.
we'll take that offline. So let's go ahead and kind of recap some of the things we talked about. Obviously, there was some mobile stuff going on this year at CES. I know, Mario, I think you wanted to talk a little bit about how you felt about how mobile's presence was at CES. So maybe you can wrap that up for us.
Yeah, so CES is increasingly less about mobile. The companies that used to be really involved in CES are pushing their announcement to do Mobile World Congress and also kind of more specialized, kind of more personal events, I guess. There wasn't much for mobile, and CES is a very big event. All the stuff that we're talked about, it sounds big, but consider that there's thousands of companies there, thousands of booths. Like,
oh my God, yes.
We barely have the time to go through all of them, and most of them are small startups, but there's still some really cool stuff in there. Shout out to Samsung C Labs. You guys should look into the stuff that they're doing. There's a lot of interesting stuff that happened at CES that wasn't mobile related. For us at XDA, it's great that we're expanding into PC hardware because we still have a kind of an excuse to go to CES for all the PC hardware stuff.
Yeah.
I'm expecting that Dan will go next year, and they'll be a lot of fun as well. But yeah, so mobile's kind of retreating from CES. That's just fine. There's still some interesting mobile stuff like we discussed near the beginning of the podcast. I think that we're blurring the line between many of these devices finally, and I can finally think and say this. I've always said that this is just like buzzwords and marketing, but I think that finally we're seeing some steps in that direction. Very excited to see what they're going to do with Intel's new inclusion of AMD in their platform. If it can really top a 1060 Max U on a laptop, then I'm game. Like, I'm already jealous by the fact that the Surface Book 2 has a 1060 in there. I'm like, damn, like Pascal was a huge jump,
Yeah.
And if they can rival that and at lower power consumption for smaller form factors, count me in.
Definitely. And so, Dan, what are your thoughts on some of the stuff that you heard or you saw at CES? Are you as happy as you were when you went last year, or is this is it in the right direction? Do you see a good future for us?
As far as things coming out, I think we're in a great direction. Last year was great for consumers in that we had real competition when you look at processors. If you're a team that was looking to build Android, or you had a team box and you wanted to upgrade, last year was the year you were probably going, I really think I might need to upgrade. And this year is going to make you probably think the same thing again.
Yep. Because
we're hearing some good revisions on the second generation of Ryzen, and there's rumors that come around Computex in the summer. We're going to see Intel bring 8-core mainstream.
I'm excited. I think this year definitely, as you mentioned, Mario, has been definitely a different CES for us. We went in there with a different mindset. We had some mobile, we had the Honor and the Huawei event, and I think that was kind of like the wrap up for us. And moving into hardware, moving into PCs, I think it's going to be definitely very exciting for you guys. Would I leave us any questions that you guys may have regarding this podcast? Also, let us know if you guys would like to see the podcast come back or not. If this is something that you guys would like to bring back. I know Mario used to lead that in the past, and we've had some of our other editors and contributors here at XDA. But other than that, I want to say thank you, Mario. Thank you, Dan, for joining me. Dan's all the way in Japan, by the way, so we're talking international here. And we had to time this just right, just to be able to get everybody on the feed. I'll see you guys hopefully in the next podcast. The event was great. Thank you very much for the support, guys. Like and subscribe as usual, and definitely stay with us here. Check out the portal. We're here. We're everything mobile at this point, as well as hardware and PCs. So I'll see you guys in the next video.
See you guys.
See you
later.
Guys.